How do we get over grudges that we have about people, especially people that we were close to or are close to, and it's really grating at us? Let's say you have a friend and they do something that disappoints you, or maybe they're just not as there for you as you might want them to be. Maybe you try communicating certain needs you have for them, or there's certain things they do that bother you, and they're just not getting it. And maybe you want to drop them from your life, or you don't want to be as close to them, or maybe you do, but you're kind of grappling with it, it's driving you really mad. What do you do? How do you deal with that grudge? So I was listening to a class recently and I heard a great piece of advice. Someone happened to ask this question. And the advice was that the more specific you are about what you don't like about someone, the more you can move on and be less grudgeful. So, you can say, oh, I don't like this person. I don't like this friend of mine. So now you're saying they're not your friend at all. You don't like anything about them. You can't rely on them for anything. Let's say you say, I just hate it when my family come over. Well, what do you hate? Be specific. You hate everything about them. You hate your family's existence. Well, no, they might say, well, I just find them so exhausting. They're just difficult to be around. Okay, so let's be specific. You find them difficult and exhausting. Okay, that's not so nice. Is there anything that you do like about them? Anything at all? Something? When you trim it down, you end up becoming less dramatic and actually more truthful about the person and your relationship with them. And it can help soften the hurt and the grudge, because so much of relationship comes down to expectation. Instead of throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying, just can't stand this person, if you're specific, you say, this I struggle with, or this I've learned, I've realised I can't expect of them anymore. Maybe that requires a bit of a mourning process, a bit of an adjustment process. But then, does that mean you have to drop them and drop your relationship with them? Maybe not. Maybe once you've adjusted that level of expectation, you're specific and you can clarify, this bothers me about that person. Then you can actually enjoy all the other things that you can share and can have with that person. It takes the weight off your shoulders and allows you to have a relationship. It might not be the relationship that you wanted, but it's a relationship, and it allows you to at least salvage and enjoy some of the goodness that isn't there. And more often than not, there is goodness to be enjoyed. And perhaps the things that that person, that friend, that family member can't supply, perhaps you can find others that can, whilst maintaining that relationship. When the Torah tells us not to hate our brother in our heart, what does it mean by that? Don't have any feeling at all, don't have any hatred. Sometimes we can't help ourselves. Sometimes someone can really upset us and hurt us. What the Torah is telling us is, and this actually comes out in practical halachic ramifications, if something's really bothering you, talk it out with them. Tell them. Try to resolve that feeling. Don't just leave it there. If you have the feeling that may be legitimate, but you need to deal with it. So talk to them about it. And then if you can't get anywhere with them once you've told them, then readjust your expectations. It's trying to force us to be specific about what bothers us about a person, because then you actually start to trim down the issue, maybe sometimes solve the issue, and at the very least, adjust expectations. Because otherwise, what we end up doing is we just say, oh, I can't stand that person. I hate that person. I dislike that person. And these broad stroke descriptions of how we feel about someone are actually not just unnecessary and unhelpful, but they're often untrue. Because ultimately, if you already had the relationship and let's say it's slightly adjusted or changed, then there probably was a lot of good in there anyway that can be salvaged. So by all means, we can feel upset by people's actions. We're encouraged to express those feelings and try to deal with them. But more than that, we should be specific about what it is, because when you narrow it down, the issue tends to become less significant and less overwhelming than we might have otherwise thought it was, because sometimes emotions can overwhelm our rational brain. And when our rational brain is in control, we tend to make better decisions and have better relationships. I'm Ollie Annisfeld and you're watching JTV.